ever watch a storm roll in? Not the kind you can see on the horizon with the thunder and the lightning. I'm talking about the kind that's already overhead. Quiet, thick, and electric. With something you can't see but you can feel in your bones. That's what this is. A U.S. carrier strike group. The USS Gerald Ford just rolled into the Southern Command. The baddest, most lethal war machine on the ocean. And it ain't there for sightseeing or a friendly port call. For years, Venezuela's been playing with fire. Now they're getting burned. They saw their cartel boats sunk, one after another. They saw our bombers skirting their coastline, daring them to flinch. They know our special ops are ready to move. And suddenly, the tyrant, Nicolas Maduro, is on the airwaves, begging in broken English for peace. Please, he says. Please, let me tell you something. That's not diplomacy. That's the sound of panic. And when a man like that panics, it's because he knows what's coming for him in the dark. You hear the word cartel and you think of a bunch of thugs with gold chains and AK-47s hiding in the jungle. But what if the cartel leader wears a suit? What if he gives speeches at the UN? What if he calls himself president? Don't be fooled by the title. Maduro runs the cartel of the suns. The biggest, most powerful criminal syndicates south of the border. They don't just run drugs, they run a country. They launder money through the national bank. They ship poison on state-owned vessels. They pay off the police because they are the police. And he's got another weapon, a street army called Tren de Aragua, a paramilitary mob with a network that stretches from the slums of Argentina to the suburbs of Toronto. These bastards don't just sell drugs. They export chaos. They run human trafficking rings. They fund riots in America. They move gangsters and killers through our southern border like it's a goddamn turnstile, all with the blessing of their government. Venezuela is not just a failed state. It's a criminal enterprise with a flag. And now, it's surrounded. So what does a cornered animal do? Maduro went on TV, waving the white flag, pleading for peace. But you know what else he did in the same breath? He told his own people to gear up for a war. He started a conscription drive. The same people he's robbed blind, the same people who are eating rats in the streets to survive, are now being asked to pick up rusty rifles and defend the man who turned their country into a prison. It's a pathetic, desperate puppet show. Meanwhile, the U.S. is dropping B-1 bombers right along his coast. Not one, but two. Flying low, flying fast. Showing him what real air power, what real precision looks like. The message is simple. You move, we end you. But Maduro's still playing his games. He wants his people and the world to believe that America's the villain, that we're the invaders. The truth is, he's been invading us for years, through our borders, our streets, and our morgues. The only difference now? We finally showed up at his front door. This isn't about oil. It's not about land. It's not about politics. This is about a supply chain of evil. And it's bigger than just Venezuela. Guns, gangs, fentanyl, fake passports, cash to fund riots, all of it moving like clockwork up through South and Central America, through Mexico and into our neighborhoods. And it starts in safe havens, in countries like Venezuela, where crime isn't a side hustle, it's government policy. You cut off the head of that network, you disrupt the supply chain, and the whole body starts to twitch. That's what this carrier group is for. It's not just a threat, it's a tool, it's a scalpel, ready to sever the arteries of this criminal empire. They've been operating in the shadows for too long. Now there's a spotlight on them so bright it burns. The talking heads on TV, they all talk about invasion, Marines on the beaches, street-by-street battles. That's old thinking. That's not how this war gets won. The military doesn't need boots on the ground, not in the old way. Precision's the name of the game now. And we've got the tools. Drones that can see a license plate from 30,000 feet, submarines that are silent ghosts in the water, missiles that can fly through a window, surveillance that can hear a whisper through a brick wall. Venezuela doesn't need to be invaded. It just needs to be watched, smothered, cut off from its criminal partners. And every time it tries to lash out, every time one of its cartel boats tries to make a run, it loses another piece of itself. That's how you dismantle a regime without firing a shot. You bleed it dry, and you wait for it to collapse from the inside. For years, we thought the war was overseas, that it had a clear front line in a desert somewhere. But it didn't. The war was already here. The battlefield was our border. It was our towns. It was our morgues, filled with kids who overdosed on fentanyl that came from these cartels. Those criminal states didn't need armies, they had loopholes. They had corrupt politicians on both sides of the border. They just walked right in, smiling, waving, and bringing death in their pockets. Under the last administration, the gates were wide open. They flooded in by the millions, not just families looking for a better life, but criminals, traffickers, killers, sent here on purpose. This administration, it's a different story. The doors are slammed shut, and now the ones who got rich off the chaos are screaming from the other side. Good, let them scream. It means it's working. And it's not just Venezuela. The neighbors aren't saints either. Look at Colombia's president. He gets on a stage and calls our president rude, calls him ignorant. Meanwhile, he's turning a blind eye to the cartel operations that are running through his own backyard like a highway. These countries, they push their poor north with promises of American welfare and handouts, not because they care about them, but because they get a cut of the action. It's called remittances. Billions of dollars sent back home every year. That money doesn't build schools or hospitals. It builds silence. It buys off politicians. It keeps the same broken, corrupt system running. But when you shut the border tight, the money stops flowing, and so does their patience with us. Their anger isn't about human rights, it's about their bottom line. The truth is, Maduro doesn't want a real war, he wants to survive. He knows a single U.S. carrier strike group could end his entire military before lunch is served. His air force is a collection of outdated Soviet-era junk. His army is made up of starving conscripts. So what does he do? He bluffs. He puts on a show. He shows off his rusty jets, he rallies villagers with wooden rifles, and he shoots propaganda videos for the folks back home to make himself look strong. But we're not fooled, and neither is the Pentagon. They didn't send 10,000 Marines, a nuclear submarine, and the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world to watch parades. They sent them to send a very clear, very simple message. Your game is over. You're on borrowed time. This didn't happen overnight. Venezuela's regime didn't just fall from grace. It engineered this. For years, they've partnered with far-left hate groups. They've bankrolled Antifa cells. They've planted chaos inside America like a cancer, hoping to destabilize us from within. For years, we thought that we're just another failed socialist dictatorship with bad policies. We didn't realize that we're actively building an empire of instability. One riot, one shipment of fentanyl at a time. That ends now. The first step to dismantling a threat is to see it clearly, to turn on the lights. And that's what's happening. The lights are on, and the cockroaches are scattering. Cartels don't surrender. They don't negotiate in good faith. They stall, they run, they regroup, they look for a new angle. That's what Maduro's doing right now with his pleas for peace. But this isn't a negotiation, this is a countdown. You don't get to flood our streets with poison. You don't get to send your gangs to terrorize our cities. You don't get to destabilize our country and then cry for peace when the hammer finally drops. There's a price for that, a debt to be paid, and America is finally ready to collect. Now, do me all a favor. If you like what you just saw, then please subscribe to our channel, hit that like, and tell us your thoughts in the comments, and please share if you can, because we've been shadow banned by YouTube's algorithms and they're not letting us grow. This is Charles Bronson with Celebrity Recreations and the man that makes this all happen, Chris Dallas. Thank you for being here. This isn't politics. It's justice. Well, it's about